Hi, and welcome to Crash Course Cryptozoology. Today we're going to be talking about a piece of footage that popped up. The earliest I could find it was around 4 months ago on March 1st, 2017. I have not found an earlier instance since then, but if anyone does know of one, please do link it to me, and I will take a look at it to get the time more straight. And the footage comes from Paraguay, which is a country in South America. Paraguay is rich in a lot of things, in wildlife and wild areas, in history, but especially in folklore, and that's a lot of times where cryptozoology tends to step in, is when folklore pops up. One of the more well-known figures in Paraguayo folklore is the Pombero, which is what the video that we're looking at today goes over. Before we actually look at the video, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to what the Pombero supposedly is. The Pombero, according to legend, is this elf, human-like creature that is highly intelligent and allegedly has supernatural abilities. Its abilities include mimicking other animals down to a dot so that it's able to hunt better, invisibility, it is allegedly able to impregnate women simply by touching them. It supposedly has a wide variety of very strange abilities. It's often described as very elf-like, but the most widely described form of it that I have seen is this short, very dark colored, very human-like creature that doesn't really look that far off from what humans actually look like themselves. It usually has the long hair that we see here and the very short stature. It's very hunched over. I haven't really seen a picture of it on its two legs, so to speak, if it's not using a walking stick, that is. That's another thing, is that they are supposedly very highly intelligent, and apparently you can leave out cigarettes and alcohol, and they will actually come and take them. I'm not sure if they supposedly smoke the cigarettes, or if they supposedly, do whatever with it, but they do something with it. They apparently enjoy cigarettes and alcohol for whatever they use it for. The distinctive sound, supposedly, of a Pombero is a whistling sound, which would mark their coming. It's a way of marking their approach, so to speak. Now, there isn't really a whole lot of evidence for the Pombero. There's actually very little evidence for it. There's about 3 pieces of footage that I've seen, one of which doesn't actually come from a Pombero actually being on film, so to speak, but it comes from an object being moved by itself in the video, and people saying, oh, it's the invisible Pombero grabbing for the alcohol, or something similar to that, I believe. And that itself isn't very easily analyzed, because there's not really a whole lot there. I suppose really it's too easily analyzed. And there's another piece of footage that just doesn't really seem right to me. I will still link it in the description in case you want to check it out, but there's just something very fishy about it, and I'd rather not go over something that I have so many doubts about, at least not yet. So without further ado, we're going to play the video that I'm talking about, and we're going to watch it, and we're going to just sort of make observations by the end of it.
Sí. ¿Dónde?
Right, so that's the video there in its entirety. It's about a minute long, maybe a little bit less. And there's a few things that I think are worth noting about it simply on the surface. The big thing that I noticed was not only that the creature definitely resembles descriptions of the Pombero, especially the more popular descriptions, even its physicality with the way that it walks and all that, but that this is something very odd. The dog seems to notice before anyone else that something weird is going on, whether it's a hoax or not. The person holding the camera is obviously the first person who was there to notice that something was going on. The rest of the kids there are playing soccer, it looks like, and they happen to about their phone when they see something that supposedly they're very shocked by. And the dog notices it as well. You can see here the dog has his ears perked up, his tail's not wagging, and he is sort of looking back and forth at this alleged Pombero and at the kids playing soccer and whoever's holding the phone. The creature begins to approach them, and they run for it. They scream and they start running for it. And you don't really see it after that because the camera is no longer facing it. As for the actual movement and really the time that this creature spends on camera. It is interesting because it's not very conclusive, but at the same time, there are a few weird things that surround it, such as the dog staring at it. You'd think that if this was someone in a costume, the dog would pick up on that. Maybe there's a weird smell coming off of this thing, and that's why he's looking at it like that. But it is strange. You'd think that if this was one of the kids that this dog supposedly would be spending a lot of time around, it would recognize that. And we don't exactly get a totally good look at the Pombero, allegedly Pombero, from the actual video because the video is very low quality. But there is one frame that actually is very telling, and that is it's about frame 550. I'm going to show that right now. So here's frame 550, just about anyway, and when we zoom into it, we can really sort of start to make out some detail. We can try and sharpen this image a bit to sort of clarify what's there and what isn't. Now, I would say this is about the best we're going to get the image before we really actually start to see things that aren't there. We even almost see that with here. The shape of the outline is a little bit skewed now. But we do see a bit more definition. We do see an arm very clearly. There is definitely a form to this figure. There's an arm, there's a head, there's what looks like two legs. Looks like it might be down on one knee here. It could be it's kneeling and one is simply put higher than the other. And what is most likely a second arm that is a little bit more behind whoever is right here, or whatever is right here. And it's a dark shape, you know, it's got a fairly big head on it. It's not, I mean, it looks like it has a big head, I really should say, because I did notice something here. And that's that you can actually almost see it better without sharpening the image or brightening the image. You do see a bright spot in the middle of the head, and I would assume whether this is a mask or whether this is a real creature, that would be the face. And what's interesting about that is that if we look at these depictions of the Pombero, they all have a very similar thing to it, where it has the long hair behind it, that if you were to really, really blur that, like it's really, really blurred here, you would look at that as one big head, which isn't actually the case. So the figure is short looking, but I don't quite know how big it is. I don't know how far away. It is. It looks like it's being slightly obscured by the grass around it. Unfortunately, there's such little information about the video that I can really gather, not just from looking at it, but from actually information online as well. I can't tell what type of grass is surrounding this figure. Grass itself, when it's long, that could be, 6-inch blade of grass or something like that, which would probably put this creature at around, 4 feet tall. But that is simply an estimate that is really not based off of much of anything. We can't really trust estimates with this kind of image, with this kind of video, as it is, with such little information visually and contextually. I would definitely say it's a short-looking creature, but whether that means it is short or not is obviously up for debate. The most interesting thing is definitely the way it walks and the face set in the middle of the head. Which would indicate that it's definitely a slightly more elaborate costume than it might have looked as on the surface. The thing about how it walks is that it doesn't actually... It seems that it could be a bipedal creature. Obviously, if it's a person in a suit, it is a bipedal creature. But it doesn't choose to walk on its own two legs correctly, so to speak. It crouch walks. It kind of shuffles through not on its knees, but with its knees very bent. Which is a lot of what we see here depicted with the Pombero. If it's not using a walking stick, it seems to be crouched in this position, which could suggest that its legs aren't built for standing upright correctly. I'm not entirely sure what that could mean. So, is this creature a Pombero? I really don't know. It could almost be anything. It is notable that there's a face, and that the walk is strange, and that the dog, I would assume, takes note of not only both of these aspects of this creature, but also the fact that this creature is there, and takes it as a very unusual circumstance that it can't really recognize. Now, as for really my view on the Pombero legend itself, It's interesting, I noted earlier that the Pombero depicted in many ways, but all the ways that are probably more practical, so to speak, um, the more common depictions even, do greatly resemble humans. Specifically, it resembles early humans. There's not really a specific type that it resembles, I would say, but I mean, you look at something like this per se, and the first thing I think is that looks a little bit like a Neanderthal with the facial features and a bit of the forehead coming out and everything like that. It looks a bit like an early human. Now, the interesting thing is that there are species of humans that are incredibly short. Homo floresiensis, in particular, was discovered, I think, in 2009, I want to say, on the Flores Islands in Indonesia. And they grew to about 3 feet tall. And the interesting thing about that is that's, I think, the shortest human species that we've ever discovered. They lived as early as 50,000 years ago, according to research. And the interesting thing is that South America experienced a boom, an absolute boom, in early human population at, I believe, around 40,000 years ago. And of course, for early humans to get to South America, they would have had to cross over from Asia into North America first, which did happen. The idea is that it's possible that areas like Indonesia may have been a breeding ground for these shorter species. This is merely a theory that I have, if the Pombero is real, that is. And it's possible that those species migrated from Asia to North America and then were part of the boom in South America. This could be the case, although there's not really a whole lot of evidence to support it, aside from the fact that what we see by fossil record. And the thing about that is apes, and we are apes, don't really leave a good fossil record. We look at species like Gigantopithecus, which is the largest ape ever known to man. We only have a jaw, I think it's even just like a few teeth and part of the mandible. So we don't even have a lot of evidence for such a huge creature like that. So is it possible that a shorter species of human migrated there and didn't really leave a fossil record? Or at least not one that we've discovered yet? I think that's possible. If the Pombero is real, I would say the Pombero could very well be an early species of human that has survived in probably hunter-gatherer forms, because if they had moved on to agriculture, they would have assimilated into society, or they would have been rejected by society and formed their own, or died off due to low numbers compared to the rest of the world. And it's not like a hunter-gatherer species wouldn't be able to survive in Paraguay relatively easily. There's a lot of species of animals and a lot of species of plants in the wilds of Paraguay in such numbers that could definitely support a tribe of hunter-gatherers. There are already tribes that live out in Paraguay. It's not that hard to think that an even smaller tribe, at least in stature, which means they would likely need less food, could survive on that same population of food. The video does bring up some very interesting thoughts and definitely brings to question what the Pombero could be if it is real. Obviously, when we look in this video, we don't really see it using supernatural abilities. It doesn't turn invisible. It doesn't imitate other animals. And the thing is that those aren't really supernatural abilities anyway. Turning invisible, of course, literally is a supernatural ability. But when we talk about turning invisible, we could talk about something that is very good at camouflaging itself, very good at hiding, which would support the idea that if they are real, they're a hunter-gatherer species. Whistling could just be a sound that it makes, ultimately. The whistling only has the significance in legend of being the sound that it makes upon arrival, so it could even be some kind of warning sound. And even for mimicking other animals, there are animals that actually do that in nature to lure in prey. One perfect example really is the anglerfish, which uses the light to lure in prey. When it gets close enough, they eat it. It's not exactly imitating another animal's sound, but as humans, we can do that. In fact, that's one of our greatest hunting strategies is bird calls and things like that. And if a species like the Pombero could be real, then we're looking at something that may not really be supernatural as much as highly in tune with its hunting and gathering skills, which would support the idea that it is an early human. I'm not saying any of this is definitive. Again, there's such little evidence for the Pombero that I myself am not really sure if the Pombero is real, or if this is a Pombero in this video. I don't really entirely know. That's just my own theory on what the Pombero could be if they are real. And on the subject of real, I don't know if what's in the video is real. This could very easily be a kid in a costume or an adult in a costume. Again, the size isn't really all that determinable. It is worth noting the weird things about the video, and it is worth noting their connections to the Pombero legend and what that could mean if the Pombero did actually exist. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this video is real? Do you think it's fake? Have you noticed something that I haven't noticed in this video? Do you have your own theories on the Pombero? Do you have information on the Pombero that I didn't really mention? I'd be glad to hear that. I'd be glad to read about that. Let me know if you have anything like that, any extra observations. And with that being said, until next time.